My 240 finally looks like a car again. In the last video, we fully welded on the quarter panel and test fitted the trunk, taillights, and rear bumper, and this looks outstanding. And if you guys remember the very first test drive last year, the turbo blew up. And I am still shocked on why it blew up on the very first test drive, but you know what? I'm glad it blew up when it did, and now the car is completely painted. So today we have a couple of things going on. Very first, I want to replace the turbo. This is a new used turbo that I got from Cho FDM. Thanks, Cho. And we have an OEM Nissan gasket kit to go on with that. And then I also ordered a 3-inch flex pipe. That way I can put this on my downpipe. My downpipe currently does not have a flex pipe on it. And also last year when I was refreshing the RB, 6 out of the 12 exhaust manifold studs were snapped. And I think that's because there is no flexible point in the exhaust, so we're definitely going to change that this time. And unfortunately, I cannot use my previous exhaust. When I drove 4.5 hours to and from the drift event, it was actually dragging most of that time. So there's just, there's not much to this exhaust anymore. Luckily, I did pick up another exhaust. This is an RSR exhaust, also from Japan. This exhaust has been passed around. It's got a rust hole right here. The hangers were cut off, so we'll have to fab that up later. But if you guys have a 300ZX Greddy muffler, let me know. I will gladly buy that off you. That was my favorite muffler ever. It's a big cannon, cool tip. But this will do for now. And I also have some stickers available. Never stop progressing. No fresh starts. Keep the story alive. I guess I'm gonna have to update this design now, huh? I'm gonna be honest, I thought I was gonna have to pull the engine to replace this turbo, but now that I'm looking at it, there is plenty of room here. So that's exciting. I guess we'll start with taking off the intercooler pipes, the intake, ducting, and I guess the rest of the exhaust. Unplug the O2 sensor so we don't rip that out. I also had to buy a brand new ratchet and 10mm. I think I left my last ratchet and 10mm deep in the junkyard. And believe it or not, that's the first ever 10mm socket and ratchet I've ever lost. As much as that's a meme. Man, I'm just looking at this turbo and I remember my shock tower was on the turbo. That's why this tab is bent. The crash hit so hard that the shock tower bent this tab on the turbo. That's insane to think about. And it's the same car. I just noticed that there's a little bit of oil seeping out of this exhaust right here. I'm curious to see how this looks when we take it apart. Now for the fun part, taking off the hard lines. And these are still stock lines. This is the coolant feed on the side here. It actually goes to the back. Can't even see it. The oil feed is on top. Another coolant port on the side. And then the oil drain on the bottom. Now I did order a braided line kit in case I want to go that route. But if I can get these off without any issues, I'm going to keep it stock for now. Because surprisingly, these are not rusty. Well, I guess not surprisingly. This car has never seen winter. And the big ones are a 24mm. Big wrench. Let's see if we can get the back one. This is the real struggle. Can't even see the dang thing. I'm wondering if I have to take off this line all the way in the back of the head. It attaches somewhere over here. Man, can you even see that back there? It's going to be one of those quarter turns at a time situation. I was somehow able to get that inside one. And you can hear the coolant pouring out now. I don't know why I thought I didn't need to drain the coolant, but I guess it's draining itself now. But hey, we can actually take a look at the turbo now. Woo! There is no turbine in there. Wow. This is what it's supposed to look like. It's supposed to have a little wheel in there. Well, I guess while that's draining, I'll start folding up these tabs. These are like little lock washers that hold the bolts in place because these are always known to back themselves out. Next, I'm going to start taking off the turbo. I'm going to break the bolts loose, not completely off because I didn't take off the oil drain or the oil feed line yet. This is actually a shaved socket that I made for this particular job. Perfect fit. Turbo bolts are loose. I'm going to take off the oil feed now. Keep this guy nice and clean. Save this crush washer just in case. I messed up here. I probably should have loosened the oil drain before I poured coolant on everything. Everything is now disconnected or loosened up. The only thing left are these top two turbo nuts and the rest of the rear water port. I can't get to it from here because it's hitting this oil line. So hopefully if we take off the rest of the turbo, we'll have more access to it. Here's those lock washers. Hopefully that gives us enough room to get the rest of this rear port off. Alright, should just pull this up and off the oil drain. I need two hands. Oh, look at these chunks in here. Oh no, I might have to take off the rest of the intercooler piping to make sure there's not more in there. Man, this turbo really yeeted itself on that test drive. It's crazy because I wasn't even pushing it hard. I was just driving normal. We put a new clutch in it, so I was like, I need a break in the clutch. Oh my gosh. Let's see what that looks like. The rest of the carnage. No way. Looks like that was the inside of the turbine, maybe? Let's see if there's any shaft play. Nope. She's good. Yeah, there's nothing on this side. It just snapped off. How did both sides just grenade themselves? It doesn't even make sense. Does anyone have any idea how or what could cause that? To have both sides blow up like this? Before installing new parts, I like to compare them to the old one just to make sure everything's good to go. So this is our new one. I just poured water down the coolant port in an attempt to clear out any gunk that was in it. Here's our old one. It looks like the only thing we really need to swap over is this bend for the oil drain. And then here's our gasket kit. This is the turbo flange. Perfect. This is the exhaust outlet flange. That's the same. This is the oil drain gasket, which I don't think we need to use. This is the intake elbow gasket, which also I don't think we need to use because we're not touching all that. And all new crush washers. Super nice. And I didn't know this, but it actually came with more lock washers. So that's nice too. I have the turbo very loosely mounted while I start this rear water bolt because it's a lot easier when it has some type of play. And also it's the hardest bolt in this whole job, so might as well make it easy on ourselves, right? The rear water bolt is now snug. It's not tight because I like to leave everything somewhat loose while going together, especially with hard lines, because if you tighten this turbo up first, then it makes it really hard to put all these hard lines on. If it was braided lines, it'd be a different story, which I don't know why I didn't use the braided lines, but I figured, you know what, these are working, why not keep running with them. We'll go ahead and throw these new lock washers on now too, because I'm going to start threading in all the nuts for the turbo. I only have one briefly started just so it would hold itself up while I started that back bolt. I guess all that's left is just folding in these tabs. The turbo's good to go. And now I cannot forget to tighten the bottom oil drain. And before I proceed any farther, I want to take off the intercooler pipe on the hot side that goes to the intercooler. That way we can see if there's any shrapnel in there. Because the last thing you want to do is blow up your engine because of the previously blown turbo bits are still stuck in your piping. But hey, thankfully I made these intercooler clamps accessible with the bumper still on the car. Oh, there's the intake filter. Alright, moment of truth. Oh, surprisingly, the pipe looks clean. I thought this would be black from oil. Alright, let's check inside the intercooler itself. Oh, look at that. Look at all those goodies. Dang, that's not good at all. Looks like I'm going to be taking the intercooler off. Man, that's really unfortunate. But hey, at least I can do it without taking off the bumper, because that is just a pain to do. So the airflow of the intercooler pipes go this way. I'm going to dump the intercooler out that way. That will prevent any more from falling further into the intercooler itself. Let's see how much comes out. Oh my gosh. That would definitely cause issues down the line. Well, it's a good thing we checked. It's really unfortunate that this is a brand new intercooler. It has like 7 miles on it. Also no air compressor. I can also just blow the rest out. Honestly, I do not think it's a good idea to run this intercooler. With how much is still coming out, that's just asking for a bad time. This could definitely blow your engine, you know? But I do have my old intercooler. This is the one that was in the crash, actually. The same exact one, just a little more beat. All the tabs are messed up. So I'll have to make custom mounts to mount this one, which actually I like this one better because I welded these tabs on the bottom. That one doesn't have the tabs on the bottom. So you have to use these, which I don't like because they're so flexible. So this would be a lot more solid, but this one's also clean. All right, the more I think about it, the less I like the idea of running a used intercooler or one that's full of junk. So I'm just gonna have to order a third intercooler, but that's all right. While we're waiting for that to come in, I can still make the exhaust. That's gonna be a project in itself. It's really annoying making exhaust. I think I feel this way because when I was making actually the exhaust for this car, that exact one right there, the Gretty, it fell onto my face when my friend was trying to pull it out, and that's how I chipped my tooth. I guess I have beef with this guy. But I did line them up next to each other just to confirm that they are the same, and honestly, this one looks a little longer, our new one. Oh wait, nope, just didn't match the starting point. Yeah, they're about the same. Okay, so the hardest part is going to be figuring out the downpipe. Here is our flex joint, or flex pipe. This will absorb a lot of the vibration in the exhaust and from the engine, which will prevent exhaust studs from snapping. Now, ideally, I would like this to be right about here. So this is right off the turbo. And then it goes straight into this downpipe. And you can see the bottom of this downpipe has been flattened naturally. At least that's self-clearanced already. But I don't know if this is too long to put right here. I don't want this to be too choppy, but if I put it here, that's kind of pointless because that would make it hang lower than this to begin with. And sometimes these flex pipes are directional, and in this case, they are. This is the front, and this is the back. When I push it against my knee, you can see that inner barrel moves. I put some thought into how I'm going to make this exhaust. And I think what I'm going to do, instead of putting this flex pipe right here, that's going to be too close and it'll make the downpipe longer than it needs to be. So instead, I think I'm going to combine these two pipes and bridge it here. Now, before I cut any of these, I actually want to mount these on the car as they are now because I know for a fact that these are in the correct location. Basically, this turbo outlet and this downpipe and this test pipe and this catback exhaust is all a kit. All of the flanges are where they need to go. So I don't want to cut this first and then have to decide where the hangers go. So basically I need to mount the exhaust first. Once that exhaust is hanging, then I can cut these flanges and then mount the turbo outlet and then match up the downpipe while this is attached to the test pipe and the rest of the exhaust, because that will confirm it's in the correct location. Hope that made sense, but let's knock it out. And I'm not going to use the brand new gasket because it's going to have to come on and off a few times. And I kept the old stuff. You never know when you might need it. I mean, this is a prime example right here. All right. I'll probably attach these first because it's a pain to do under the car. Oh, it's already on there. All right, let's get this on. I probably should have put this on first, although I don't remember which direction it goes. There's a lot of nasty gasket in there though. That's right, we'll figure that out once we somewhat mount this. Looks like we have at least 2 hangers to go off of. Gonna need to weld that too. Figured it would be a good idea to bolt the exhaust together before sliding it under the car, because it's gonna be a pain to mount all of these and try and line it all up. And again, that's how I chipped my tooth, so I'm just trying to avoid that at all costs at this point. After digging through the bolt bin, we found some hardware. So let's slide this thing in there. Let's see if we have the bushings. All right, so here's one. And this one should be, yeah, right there. It's got a zip tie in it. Don't ask me why. And you can also see how low this downpipe hangs. It's actually lower than the frame rails, which is very not ideal. And surprisingly, with only those two hangers, this exhaust looks totally fine. Not too low. Let's see how the back looks. Now remember, there's no hangers for the muffler. We're gonna need to make some of those. I like it better when the tip is closer to the bumper. Let's just get an idea. Maybe scoot it over a bit. Not bad, not bad. I do have a rear lip that I'm going to be putting on this car. Although it's not here right now, it is currently on Fran's 240. And it'll end up covering a lot of the exhaust tip. But for now, that's pretty good. I guess the next step is taking off the downpipe and the turbo elbow. And we can cut off this flange. And then we'll cut this right here. Right along that flange. And if we're planning to attach this around here, you can honestly cut this one right there. Now this is a 3-inch flex pipe on both sides. This is a 2.5 inch. So look at that gap. Not good, not ideal. But this is a 3-inch. So that will be fine. Now the flange on the downpipe came with a 2.5 to 3-inch adapter. So what I'm going to do is cut the flange off of this adapter and then basically weld the 2.5-inch pipe to this hot pipe. This is directional. This goes this way. And then we'll tack this into position. Metal is prepped on the hot pipe. We have our flange ready to go. That'll go there. And then we'll go ahead and weld this on after. Perfect. Ready to go. I can't lie, that was really satisfying to weld. Especially coming from paper thin metal, I was actually able to lay down a solid bead on this instead of having to wait for it to cool down to throw another one on. The more you do it, the better you get at it. Alright, now we just install this back on the car and then we'll reattach the downpipe and see how it lines up to this flange. I just have the rear flange butted together and then I raise it. And it's sitting lower than before, so I need to trim off at least 1 inch from this downpipe and then try again. Yeah, that's that's way too low. Now the correct tool to use for this would technically be a bandsaw. That way you get a nice straight cut, but we don't have a bandsaw here. This is a garage, not really a workshop. So I just very carefully cut with the cutoff wheel, going very slowly and making sure I get it as straight as possible. Alright, next test fit. Actually, that's perfect. I like it. We got it tacked on here. The height looks great. Now we need to take it off and fully weld it. It's got a lot of buoyancy. Pro tip, I'm going to put my new gasket on top of the hardware. Actually, you know what? No, we'll just put it on now. Yep. The next time we mount this thing will most likely be the last time, the official mount. But alright, let's finish up the welds on this. This is now good to install back onto the car. And I also need to start looking into making the mounts for the muffler. Because remember, this is just jacked up right now. And I think I'm actually going to have to take off the bumper to get access to it. And it's off. Alright, so what's important now is that we don't move the muffler too much because it is balancing on the jack in the center slit of the bumper. So here's one of the hangers that we need to line up. It looks like it was cut here. Let's see if the old exhaust has hangers. And it does. Now yes, this hanger is installed on the exhaust tip. And that's because it was not attached at all after the crash. The crash hit so hard that the exhaust actually bent in the middle and the hangers no longer lined up on the car. So just to drive it to and from the drift event, I relocated the hanger to the tip because that's the only place it lined up. It looks whack, but it worked. But we're going to cut this off and use this now. Now we'll install our beautiful hangers. So now that I tack welded the exhaust in place, I can now remove the jack and jack stands that are holding it up and verify that we are happy with how the exhaust sits. And if we are, then we can take it off and fully weld on these mounts that we just made. Alright, how do we feel about that? Perfecto. Doesn't hit anything. How's the droop? Not bad. Not bad. Can't see it. Much better. And another cool thing, check this out. You can shake the whole exhaust. And while shaking it, you can see that the turbo elbow is not shaking and the flex pipe is taking in all of that flex. And also I ordered exhaust gaskets, which there's none on right now because I didn't have any. And honestly, while it's off, I want to try and clean this up. It's kind of crusty. So don't forget, we had the hole directly in the center of the exhaust. I really wonder what happened here because it goes all the way through. Like what? Very strange. Well, just for a light little cleanup, I think that came out just fine. Later down the line, I can polish this up real nice. I'm not going to put too much detail in it right now because there's a lot more things we need to worry about than detail on the exhaust muffler. I also went ahead and grinded some of the bottom just to see what this design was. And it looks like it says concept. It's got a little RSR badge here, and of course, made in Japan. And I went ahead and took apart the rest of the exhaust because we're still waiting on the exhaust gaskets to come in, and then also the intercooler. And this video has been 2 or 3 days in the making, and when I started this video I had about 95,000 subscribers and we just hit 100,000, so thank you guys so much. I'm planning to make a special video, like a 100K bonus video or something, but I need to make sure that I can get this car done and ready for the events coming up. So if that 100K video doesn't come right away, don't worry, it will. Just know that this car needs to be done and ready. Because I'm excited. I'm sure you guys are excited to see it. But I'm going to end this video here. Hopefully next time we can get this thing on the road. Don't forget to drop a like in the video. And if you aren't subscribed already, make sure you're pre-200K gang. Peace out.